Hello and welcome to my Webquest project. My Webquest project is entitled Industrialization Changed the World. And in this project, students will choose an innovation or a social change that took place during the Industrial Revolution, and they will create a project. So you can see the simple layout of my web quest. This is just a little introduction talking about the role of the historian and some of the skills that students will be using during this project and how that directly applies to just embracing the historian's craft and what it means to be a historian, the research, the collaboration, the presenting your data. I want students to do all of that during this project. So if we just skip over to the introduction, I have put a helpful video in this section called Crash Course, the Industrial Revolution, and it's a video done by John Green over at Crash Course channel on YouTube. It's very helpful, just a lot of information, so if they were unclear about any of the basics of the Industrial Revolutions, the students can watch this and feel like they at least have something to go off of for this project. And you can see I have a brief description of the Industrial Revolution and a description of what the video is intended to, and just an image that I really feel defines the Industrial Revolution when it comes to factory life, and it's very black and white and mechanical, and that's what I really get when I think of the Industrial Revolution is mechanized industrial factory work, and that's what I kind of wanted my students to look at. Going back up, we're going to get into the task. So the task at hand for this project is I want students to really address this driving question of what innovation or social change does your group think was the most revolutionary during the Industrial Revolution? So I just have a step-by-step checklist for when doing your research, just to keep students on task, and if they're unfamiliar, it's really nice to have it just laid out right here for them to refer to after they've picked what they feel um, helped propel the world during this time, whether it was the automobile or the telegraph. I want students to take that innovation, or they could even pick a social phenomenon like capitalism that rose during this time, and I want them to address how it changed the world back then and how it continued to change the world. So telegraph. It made long distance communication possible. And without the telegraph, we would never have the phone. And without the phone, we would never have our iPhones. And we are all useless with our iPhones. At this point, we need them to survive almost. We have become dependent upon them, and we would never have that weird addiction to a little square that goes into our pocket without the original invention of the telegraph. And that took place in the Industrial Revolution. So that's just an example of what I want my students to do with whatever they pick. So after they do their research, I want them to present in two ways. I want them to make I'll just read the description. Groups will present their research to the classroom in two different ways, creatively and formally. Groups will formulate either a sketch, commercial, news broadcast, radio broadcast, or infomercial about their innovation or social change. I really want the students to be creative when doing this part of their project, just to keep it fun and show that they can record a video and upload it into YouTube. And once they've done that, I want them to embed that and put it into a Google Slides for a PowerPoint presentation where they will present the nitty-gritty facts about their innovation or social change, when it was invented, who invented it, where it was invented, how did it change the atmosphere of the world, just addressing the driving question. And then for part 3, I just want them to create a quiz that they can distribute at the end of their project. So that's what I want each groups to do with their project essentially, and I want them to use Google Docs to do their research, because it's an easy way to collaborate with one another, and you don't necessarily need to meet up every day to share resources and pictures and what you're thinking. And it's just easier to communicate, easier to show your information, and it's just easier for students to put together information that way, to collaborate. And then at the very end of the project, after everyone's presented their projects, I would like to see students just write a 1 to 2 page reflection about innovations that changed the world during this time. And I want them to cite at least 3 of their peers' presentations to just show that they have an understanding and they were following along while their peers were presenting. Moving forward, we can look at the roles of the students during this project. Now, I want the students to really be in charge of what they're doing, because I want them to exercise their 21st century skills, being I want them communicating, collaborating, and thinking critically while using technology to create their project. So I'm not going to have them assign formal roles for one another that I will keep tabs on, but I want them to really determine their strengths and work with them, and I want them to have fun with this project. And by all means, I don't want one person to be in charge of everything. So on this roles page, I have some things to remember, like one person should not be doing all the work, and um, one person does not have to do one job. And then I just had some recommendations for roles if they're drawing a blank on what they can be doing. So techie, storyboard, outliner, organizer, researchers, and resources. And since this is a group project, I don't expect one person to be the researcher. Maybe they want to divide up and assign roles on how they do their research. And maybe they all collaborate in that way over the research, and they bring together different resources for their final project. Moving on to resources, I just have some food for thought for the students. If they're having problems, I inserted a link of innovations that came about during the Industrial Revolution. So if they don't know what they want to do their project on, this is just a list that has the spinning jenny, the train, the telegraph, the dynamo, just things that they might want to do their project on, but they're not sure they were invented during this time. And I did the same thing for social events that came along during this time. And if they're having problems finding primary and secondary sources, I inserted some links on places to do research, places like JSTOR, Google Scholar, and ProQuest. And then I also have a link for descriptions of primary and secondary sources if they feel unclear or rocky on the subject. And when it comes to using Google Docs and Google Slides, I have uploaded some tutorial videos Just in case they feel uncomfortable or uneasy about the process, they can always refer back to these tutorials for any clarification they need. Evaluations. So groups will be evaluated as a whole, and then they will essentially be given whatever their group gets. So if on the first four sections the group scores a 16, then each member of the group gets a 16. And then, of course, reflection papers are just a reflection of each individual student. I just include it in the rubric to fill out the full 20 points. And then I also put together just a group evaluation sheet. So if at any point students feel like they're doing an unfair amount of work, they can always evaluate their peers at the end of the projects to make sure that everyone's getting fairly graded. So if you feel like one member didn't do their fair share, you can write so on your group evaluation sheet. And I included right here, if a group member is determined that they have not participated equally, they will be dropped one letter grade. And I have included the state standards and the Common Core state standards that will be addressed during this project. So, content standard 10.3, students analyze the effects of the Industrial Revolution in England, France, Germany, Japan, and the United States. On the teachers page, I just have the net standards, what we're trying to accomplish with this project, being creative and innovation, communication, collaboration, research, and information fluency, critical thinking, digital citizenship, technology operations and concepts. And just a brief description of this assignment is intended to get students collaborating, communicating, and thinking critically while using technology, exercising those 21st century skills. And then just a created by Lawrence Michael Sessory Jr. as part of EDU 407 at University of LaVerne. And that is my ProQuest or my Webquest project. I hope you've enjoyed.